What's up, Jermaine?
What's happening, man? How are you? Thanks for checking in. Ryan joining us. New glasses.
Is it? Oh, yeah, you don't have your clear glasses today.
You know what? I sent them back. I scratched them. I had them fall off my face the other night, so getting some new lenses. That's all.
What's up, Ty?
And these I've had for a long time, but I had one of the lenses pop out during the pandemic and couldn't get it in for repair.
All right, here we go.
All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another week of DJ's live streaming. I am Scott Smoking Silz, one of the original Hot Mix 5, coming to you from Chicago. I am joined by the legendary New Yorker transformed to Hawaii, the legendary Doc Rock. What's up, my man? How are you?
What's happening? What's crackalacking, people? How you guys doing out there this week? Yeah. I hope everybody is doing good or well or whatever the proper English is.
Right. It's been quite a week. How's things in Hawaii?
Good. You know, funny thing is our weather has been super good, and I just realized it's because when the sky got to clear up, our summer is in like boiling 100 degrees 5-6 days in a row. Our summer is actually mild this year, and I honestly think it's because the sky is much clearer now. We're getting crazy sunsets. Like, I actually been taking time out to go outside every day at sunset and just look at it because it's been dope recently. So that's cool.
That's awesome.
It's a good.
We've had a great summer. It's been really hot. Lots of 90s, but then the last 3 days, like today is perfect. It's like 80 degrees. It's awesome. But it was actually cool the last couple of days and last couple of nights. We haven't had that. This year has been pretty much 90 degrees every day. So I love it. I mean, I love July. I love August. I love hot weather, long sunny days. Nothing better than that as far as I'm concerned.
From the hockey guy, he likes hot weather.
Yeah. Hey, there is nothing better than rolling up to the rink with the convertible top down. And then you go into the air-conditioned hockey rink and you come back out and you get right back in the convertible car and go home. It's awesome.
I never wanted a convertible.
Nothing better, man. That's where I think, guys in LA playing, they got their ride and they're going to the rink. That's the way to do it. That's how you roll.
I never wanted a convertible because I can never get the sensation of the wind blowing through my hair because I don't have any. So I just like, screw it, keep the top on.
Well, you would think it's like, oh, it's really windy or whatever. No, man, it's actually really comfortable. There's, I just love it. I mean, I'm a huge fan of that.
Okay.
So I got a 5.0 rag top.
I got to confess something that I feel absolutely stupid about because I figure I should know better. I've actually even been there. I didn't realize how much waterfront you guys have in Chicago. I don't know why I didn't realize that.
Yeah,
but you guys got a lot.
We have this little body of water called Lake Michigan. Yeah. And yes, it runs all the way up and down, all the way basically up to Wisconsin and keeps going. And it runs all the way down through Indiana and it keeps going, and you can circle it actually. So you can really stay on those Great Lakes for a long time.
Yeah, I never realized
But yeah,
that.
we have
I don't know
why. Our area, like in Chicago, if Doc's from New York, and if you guys are joining us from, Hawaii, where he is, or whatever the case may be, we have this area called Lakeshore Drive that is just beautiful. It's gorgeous beaches and nice homes, and it's set back. So we have a bike path there, and we have a running lane there. And most of it's been closed because of the pandemic this year. They just reopened it kind of recently, but they won't let you stop. You can't go to the beach. You got to keep moving. So we're not getting to take full advantage of it this year, which is too bad. But it is beautiful. If you've never been to Chicago, Chicago is an awesome city. I mean, it is a world-class, beautiful city. Contrary to what you probably see on the news or hear from the news of how bad Chicago is. Yes, we do have some issues. Make no mistake about that. But it is a great city. There are a lot of great people here, and it's a wonderful place to be. And there's lots to do, man. So it's a great spot. Highly recommended if you've never been to Chicago to come here. As far as clubs go, we used to have a pretty good club scene, but I think just like the rest of the world, Things are getting smaller. We don't have a club scene now, obviously, because of the pandemic. All the bars are still closed. Actually, the bars had opened for a period of time, just a little bit, but now they are all shut unless they're serving food. So, a lot of stuff happening here. You mentioned hockey, and hockey is closing down. We just opened up like a month ago, and now the governor is shutting us down as of August 15th. We cannot have any competitive hockey whatsoever. So teams can practice like skills, but they can't compete. They can't even have a scrimmage as far as that sport is concerned. And that's the case for several other sports like football. And I'm not sure wrestling, all this other stuff, things that they consider to be high risk. So it's a political situation here, but that's kind of what's going on. So, we're just excited that we still have summer and that we can join you guys every week. And if things are going the way they are now, we may be joining you even more because streaming is definitely not going away.
Yes.
But today we will, normally we have a guest on every week, and I was hoping to have a true legend. I'm not going to tell you who it was because he is going to come back on the show. Next week, I have Tim Schomer. If you guys are into freestyle music and you grew up listening to B96 or whatever the case, Tim has been around for a long time. Great guy. Been streaming for a long time. So we're going to be talking to him next week. But today, there's a lot of news out. Apple just released their new iMac computers yesterday, I believe. And so Doc and I were going to run down some of the technology because we've had a number of conversations about like upgrading machines and, what works and what doesn't work. And Doc is just brilliant at this. He is just a great technical person, way better than I am. And I want to go through some of this stuff today because we came on this just a few minutes ago before we actually start the live show. And we were talking about like the new MacBook or an iMac, I should say. And, I was like, I spec'd one out yesterday and it comes out to about $3,300 the way I liked it. And I read down the specs and he's like, oh, no, don't do it that way. Do it this way. And, a way to save some money and really make things work. Just so you guys know the background, like when I'm working here at the studio, if I'm out at shows, my laptops are not brand new machines. I have a 13-inch MacBook Pro that's probably a 2013 or 2014, I guess. But I have upgraded it. I've put in the maximum amount of RAM. I've put in 2 terabyte or 1 terabyte solid state drives in all my machines. I also have a 17-inch MacBook Pro, which is what I use to stream my DJ sets off of. And I have an i7 processor in there. It's a 2011. And I put in a solid state drive. Well, I've had this iMac, which we do the streaming shows off of. It is a late 2013. And it was like a doorstop. Honestly, I was going to throw this thing out. I was so frustrated. I've been frustrated with it for over a year. It would take a half hour to boot up. And I turned around and I took it in and I got a 2 terabyte solid state drive put in this thing. I already had 16 gig of RAM. And I mean, I've had this thing checked out. I took it into Micro Center. They couldn't touch it. I've got all the RAM in there, everything that I need. Well, I took it to this place that has done some work for me before called Wappen Industries here in Chicago. And he put in a 2 terabyte solid state drive and changed some stuff in the back of my machine. This machine is like a brand new machine. It absolutely is on fire. It rocks. Like now I won't even think about getting rid of it. I was going to buy a new computer. I don't think I need to now. I'm really happy with it. So guys, if you haven't switched your drives out in your computers and put in a solid state drive, you are doing yourself a disservice. That's just my personal opinion. These machines can really go. And if you got anything past a 2013, they're great machines. And, with a little upgrade, I spent about $800 having that drive put in, which I thought was a lot more than I expected to pay for it. But that was the cost of the drive, the labor to move all the data and everything else. But it was well worth it. It's not money I wanted to spend, but I feel like I got a new machine now. It's got new life and should be good for a while. So, Doc, let's talk about these new machines and what they come with if you guys are ready to upgrade. Does somebody need a new iMac or can they make an upgrade to their machine? And what's the benefit of these new machines? What's in there that's so special that's going to make us all want to go out and give Apple some more of our money?
Okay, so First, I'm trying to figure out. I think Restream gave us a crappy server because the stream looks horrible, but I'm looking at internet usage. It's not even taxed. Like, I have pretty nuts internet gear, and look, I'm not even using 2% of my signal. so so
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out what Restream did to us today because it's normally flawless, but I think they gave us a
Well,
crappy server.
I
And
can't. To be honest with you, like I'm looking at it on YouTube, and we look pretty good. Not as
okay,
good as normal, but it looks
okay,
pretty good. But looking at my Skype picture, we
Skype has
look
nothing to
horrible.
do
I
with it.
can't.
Yeah, Skype has
Yeah,
nothing to do
I
with it.
can't see anything because of the Skype. What I'm seeing off Skype is bad.
Yeah, that's you're monitoring your own self internally. That doesn't mean anything. I'm just curious about the stream.
Yeah.
Anyway, if the picture quality is junk, we're going to ignore that because what we got to talk about is probably important, left, right, or indifferent. So, first of all, 9 times out of 10, most people can always get away with using what they got regardless. That doesn't mean you should, but you can. So, it's a matter of what your priorities are. Like if you want your stuff to be the dopest, then you're gonna have to throw at it, right? If you are cool with, oh, this is just good enough for government work, that's fine. So like take what we say and salt it to match your taste. Okay. Me personally, I'm always gonna go for try to put out the best. So even in a situation where Restream is doing what it's doing today, at least I know that because I started with the high level signal, it will still be passable. But if you started with passable and then Restream does this, now you're ineffective. So there's always that thought too, right? I learned computers from the day one, so we were garbage in, garbage out. You always want to throw the best at what you can. Okay, that
Yep.
being said, the benefits that are popping on the new iMacs, um, primarily it has to do with this 10th generation Intel Core processor. Now, without confusing people or without getting nerdy, I had to spend a lot of time last night trying to process in my head how I'm going to explain this in caveman so that everybody who is thinking about whether
So I
they,
can
yeah,
understand.
just so general folks can understand. Um, so the key element here is that the 10th generation processors have built-in built-in video encoder and decoders. Um, as a matter of fact, everything since about fifth generation has that, but each generation gets better and better and better and better. So with the current processor, not even talking about graphics card yet, the current processors can compress a video and uncompress a video much faster than the predecessor. So when you go to play an overlay, when you go to play a video in your stream, right? Say you want to show somebody a clip from YouTube, or you want to have a video background playing while you're green screened out so that you're dancing in Mumbai or something. The modern processor, the 10th generation Intels, will do much better than the ninth generation or the seventh generation or the fifth. Going off a recollection of your machine, I think you have like the third generation Intel processor, right? So
Probably
like
about right.
there's a huge gap between what the third generation or fourth generation processor does than what the 10th does. And the curse of Macs, and I will always say this, the absolute curse of Macs is they tend to work really well. And what I mean by work is power on, open up a browser, let you type, let you do all of that stuff. But that doesn't mean that you're running in an optimal clip, right? So, for instance, now with this new iMac, there's no more regular hard drive. It's all solid state drives, right? Which is a fantastic thing because even some people that are sitting on 2017 iMacs are starting to see the slowdown in a physically spinning hard drive and it's freaking them out. That was what you were having, right? Scott, you changed yours
Yep.
to an
Absolutely.
SSD and just switching it to an SSD brought your machine to life like it did, Wonder Twin Powers activate, boom, form of faster iMac.
And this thing's going to the moon now. It's so fast. Okay.
You know what I'm
It's a
saying?
rocket.
You know what I'm saying? So Hey, we gotta behave ourselves, Scott. The boss is watching. What's up, Ecamm?
Uh-oh.
What's up, Ecamm?
Hey, Ecamm Network.
So
We got to behave.
the
We got
the
to just praise the product, okay?
a couple of weeks ago, Ken and Glenn came on, and actually it might have been just Glenn came on and did a fantastic talk about how their particular software and theoretically, based off of what he was saying, um, is probably the same for OBS or Streamlabs OBS because they kind of do the same things. They were saying that their money is in really CPU and a little bit of RAM, right? So having a super Jim Dandy GPU or graphics card isn't going to do much for you in the realm of streaming. But I like to put an asterisk on that because what I learned from Stephanie and what I've learned from watching, Mike Alton and some of the other people out there that are doing the sort of strategy side of this, your pre-production and your post-production is where you're going to get the majority of your benefit from having a better, faster computer, right? Like in theory, you could take a 2013 Mac Mini and run a stream perfectly fine as long as you're doing what we're doing right here. Two heads, an overlay, talk to people, press a comment every once in a while. Like,
Right.
like my man Keep It Techie, right? Hey, he's a good PC dude. I'm gonna have you come on one day and help the DJs with the PC side of things because I can talk Mac for days. My PC knowledge is there, but it ain't gangster, right? I'm like, want to be gangster in that level. So, in theory, the grand scheme of things is you can stream from an iPhone. But I think
Yeah.
when people say that, that's dismissive. And the reason why that's dismissive, a iPhone 11 is faster than almost every 2014 computer sold, period, in the story. So if you have a computer that's, say, older than 2015, and then someone says, "Oh, you can stream with an iPhone," your iPhone's faster than that old computer, dummy. Like we're past that,
Yeah.
because it's a very optimized processor. It doesn't waste anything, which is why the new, like next year Macs will be built off of that same iPhone, iPad processor, and they'll be a lot more beefy because they're deciding that they want to control the optimization versus being left in the hands of what Intel is doing. So this current iMac that came out yesterday is the last Intel iMac, and it is a beast. And I'm going to show you guys how to configure one in a second after I drink
So
this.
here's the big question. If you're thinking about buying a new machine, do you jump in now and buy the last Intel, knowing it's a very well-made machine, just like the 2019 MacBook Pro? Or do you wait? Because typically in everybody that's in the audio video business, typically the software that we use is not always as compatible with that first generation of anything. So when we see a changeover, we don't want to be the first one to put in the new
That's
operating
old.
System.
That's old. And I get it.
So Serato's going to run off that
Mi-
brand new machine day one out of the box. We're not going to
100%.
have to wait for an update.
Absolutely 100%. And you know why you know this?
And you're on record with that.
I'm going to go on record and I will put my life on it. And I'm going to tell you why. Okay, people, music people especially, so you're allowed to. I'm going to give every music person in the game a pass. We grew up with Pro Tools. If you farted loud enough, Pro Tools would break.
Man, Pro Tools doesn't. You can't even run Pro Tools on the same machine with Serato because of.
Yes, but that's old stuff. All the modern gear now, everything you can walk into Guitar Center today and purchase, we don't have any drivers anymore, right? We don't need them. Everything is built off the basic USB core, right? The last 3 or 4 Intel machines that came out, Mac or PC. I know PCs like to use ASIO drivers, but that's more of a Windows 10 issue, not a Mac issue. The PC hardware, if it was running Mac OS, would run every bit of that music gear without a single ASIO driver. Those drivers are because of the way Win 10 works, and that's a different story. That kind of doesn't reflect us. The modern gear all uses standard core audio, standard USB. If you buy a gear from Mac, you don't have to install any drivers. You just don't. So we don't have that problem where the driver is going to break and then it's going to break when you update because the driver is broke. That part is gone. Now, the other thing to know, there is such thing as Serato for iPhone and iPad, and they work. The new machines are going to be built off of that same processor. So the development of the software for that processor is already done to this day. Like you can pull up, Serato controller for the iPhone or for the iPad. So that process is the same. It already works. It doesn't really have to do anything. Algorithm already works, right? It's been iPad from day one. It became Mac after the fact. Tractor, all these guys, they all run on iPad. So if your software already has an iPad implementation, your software will work perfectly fine when the new silicone comes out.
That's great to know because we're definitely going to want to see that put into play pretty quickly.
Yes.
So here's the question with the machines now. The newest one, is that a 32-bit machine?
No, 32-bit
or are they 64?
32-bit has been dead for 3 years.
So what is my, if I'm on a 2013, am I on a 16-bit machine or a 32-bit machine?
You're on a 64-bit machine. Mac's been 64.
I'm on a 64 because
since 2010.
I lost a lot of my software when I've had issues with Adobe forever. And I use Adobe Audition, but I cannot run Adobe Audition anything past 2018. And I had the guy that's like the guy that fixes everything for Adobe, their chief guy that like is the guy that the go-between with the writers and making it work. And he couldn't get it to work. And then he turned around and told me, he goes, well, if you update your operating system, because I was running an older operating system, I did the update and I'm on Catalina. So I'm running 10.15.5. And what did it do for me? It turned around and took some of my software and all my plugins out of play. And it's because of 32-bit versus 64-bit.
Yeah.
So I ended up losing a lot, and it still doesn't work. Okay, Adobe, if you're listening to me,
that's not Adobe's fault. Stop.
Your stuff doesn't work.
Stop. That's not Adobe's fault. That's not Adobe's fault whatsoever. Adobe is an empty plate. Your plugin manufacturer was told 10 years ago by Apple, if you're a developer, you get a book. And every month you get emails, and they tell you, we are switching to full 64-bit architecture on 2019, January 1st. Arbitrary date. That wasn't the actual date, but we're just going to pick it. And they go, yeah, backdoor. And Apple says, okay, now this is 2013. We're telling you this crap, right? Keep going. December 2018, again, arbitrary dates. They go, listen, people, you got 2 weeks until we switch to 64-bit. Have you updated your plugin? Programmer? Yeah, whatever. Keep going. Earn that money. $400 plugin Isotope. Just take it. Boom. Keep taking it. January pops around. Everything goes to 64-bit. Developer goes, oh, Apple, you effed me. I can't believe you broke my plugins. My customers are so angry. 10-year heads up. Not one, not two, not 2 weeks, not 10-year heads up. Apple said, we are going 64-bit because it's better for the people. Now, if you know nothing about computers, every one of you guys passed 6th grade math. Which one's faster, 32-bit or 62-bit? 64.
I mean 64.
64.
64.
So, you know what I'm saying? So that everybody who's mad at Adobe or Apple,
but why doesn't Adobe Audition work
Adobe
on
is
my
a
machine?
plate, Scott. Listen, pay attention. Adobe is a plate.
I'm trying.
Okay, it is a plate. The plug-in that you're using is the food on the plate. Adobe's just a plate. It don't do jack. The plug-in is what's broken, not Adobe.
So why does Premiere work? Why does Premiere work, but Adobe doesn't? I mean, Audition does not. On the same machine. Premiere is a more powerful program.
No, it's not.
And it works.
It's not.
But Audition does not work.
But you're comparing a plate to a pot. They're two different programs. They're two different types of things. What they need the architecture to do is completely different, right? There is an audio element of Premiere, but that's not the same as what Audition is doing, right? Audition's key to success, just like Logic, is everything is non-destructive, right? So when you apply plugins, it doesn't do anything to the actual original audio file until you press 100% apply. So it's able to test and do all these EQ changes and compression changes and stuff on the fly. And in order to do that, you need lanes, and that's what these bits are: 32 lanes, 64 lanes. If I want to run a compressor, a dynamics thing to like do a roll off, I want to run an EQ, and I want to run a loudness attenuation, and put a flanger and a chorus, I need lots of lanes. It's called rush hour.
Yeah, you're going to need a lot of power.
Okay, so you're trying to rock it off of Country Road. So
I can't even get it to load. It hangs on the load in. You know,
right.
when the screen comes up and it just hangs. That's the problem.
Here's the problem.
So 2018 runs great, always has. 2019, not at all. 2020, not at all. The newest version that they just released like a month ago, not at all. Okay, so it's very frustrating.
So remind us again, what is your machine?
I'm running a 2013, late 2013 iMac 27-inch.
Okay. Can a 72 Cadillac run unleaded gas?
That would be a no.
Exactly.
Well, 72 would be
72
close.
was
A
the
60s
year.
Cadillac, no.
72
was
was
72 the year?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
So yeah, no, you can't run it on unleaded. You need leaded.
In computers, 7 years might as well be 80.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
so the processor
it used to be 18 months was 80 years. Now it's like you can get some time out of your computer. You don't have to buy a new one every 2 years.
If you want to do that, you have to know you cannot stay on the latest software, because the software has been changed to run on the new processors to take advantage of the built-in encoders and the 64-bit lanes, all the extra architecture that we're talking about. So a lot of people assume, oh, it's just new computer, they want my money. No, there's a lot more to this. And again, I don't want to get too nerdy about it, but anything older than say 2018, when we switched to KB Lake, you're going to run into architecture flip problems because there were some things that were done, right? Okay, let's get off of that for a second. I'm going to explain one thing.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is why Doc gets so passionate about this. This is why I wanted to do this show today, just so you know. I mean, we need to know this stuff, but I love the passion Doc has for this. I can just see it in his face. It's awesome.
So here's one thing that a lot of people are talking about. You know, the number one comment that comes up in the group is, my MacBook makes a lot of noise. The fans come on when I do this. Oh my God, the fans come on. They're supposed to come on. Those fans are designed to protect you. It's like a seatbelt. But in order to address that problem, Intel, because it's the same problem on PC as well.
Well, they're switching. They're going to switch processor, and it's going to be.
Okay, don't go that far forward. Let's stay right here.
Okay, all right.
In the 10th generation processor, what Intel did was they shrank the die that generates the most heat and made it wider so that it has a bigger heat dispersion. Then they put an air layer and a heat travel layer in between, like we're talking like nanometers, like less than a hair, like in the length of a hair. They actually figured out if they disconnected the top from the bottom and put a little airspace in between and a heat transfer chemical in there, they could cut that fan noise down 30%. So if nothing else, your 10th generation Intel processor, Mac or PC, will not throw your fans anywhere near as fast as the 9th generation one. See, it's more than just software. Like there's a lot to this stuff, but people don't want to know that. People just I want to turn it on and go. You know, people that say, oh, I just want to get in my car and drive. Yes, no. Like if you really want to do
that's
this,
why we buy Macs, because we do want to just turn it on and drive. We want the Mercedes. You put the key in and it drives. It's
even
not
still, it
tinker
requires a little bit of thinking on your behalf in order to understand how all of this works. And so it's very easy to be like, they broke my stuff. But, and this is back to my original point with Macs just working, computer obsolescence, industry standard, 5 years. Everything after 5 years, you're on your own, and all the idiosyncrasies that come with that, that's on you. And it is what it is. Like, you can't get away from that. It's like good running back. A good running back.
But technically, aren't they considered vintage? Like for Apple, it's like 8 years, isn't it?
It's 5 years is obsolescence. 8 years is vintage. By obsolescent, obsolescent means we no longer can get or produce parts for. That's 5 years. Vintage means we won't touch it because we're going to get sued if we break it. That's 7 years.
Okay. Well, interesting, because Micro Center would not work on my 2013 because they're like, it has to be another year older before we can go in and touch it, because they've got to deal with Apple that they can't go in and modify these machines with anything other than what Apple put in the machine to begin with. So you couldn't get a solid state drive put in by Micro Center. You had to go to somebody else. And so I ended up at this place called Lappin Industries, and they're actually recommended by Apple. I've been sent to them before to have work done on my machines. They do a great job. They're good. Took a long time to get an appointment too, by the way. But, Jet did a great job on it, man. He rocked it out, and it works really nicely now. So I'm torn. I mean, I'd like another machine, but believe it or not, I still have a Pro Tools system in the other room, and it's the old box, and it's got the Motorola chip in it. It's pre-Intel, if you could imagine that, and it still runs Pro Tools pretty nicely.
Yeah, it's weird. Like, it's really hard because in music gear, especially in music gear, a lot of times the vintage oriented stuff has better sound or just a different quality or the way it worked or whatever. But again, that Pro Tools box you got back there, I can almost put money on it. There's nothing that box can do because it's Motorola based that you can't do on an iPad.
Oh, I'm sure you're absolutely right.
So that's because
100%.
that becomes the problem, right? Tech is not.
I mean, it should have gone away forever, but it still works. That's why I don't get rid of it. I don't use it much.
It still works.
That is the curse. It is a curse.
Okay, I'll put this.
It's a curse, so I don't want to spend another $3,500.
I'll put
like
this
all the
in
DJs.
I'll put this in a young female perspective. There are a bunch of girls right now that are dating some dude who's an absolute donkey for the simple reason that he know how to work it.
There you go.
And other than that, he's useless. Some of y'all is y'all. Some of y'all is y'all. I might have been in that category. I ain't gonna hate on anyone, but that's not the play. Just because that's not the play. You know, people are like, oh, I hate this person, blah blah blah, but the sex is good. No, that's not the play. If you're going to do this, you have to do what is right, and you have to think about it from every aspect.
My Mac, since I got the 2 terabyte solid state drive, is better. That's for sure.
Yeah, and again, what did that do? It's going to make you hold on to it 2 years more longer than you should have.
Exactly.
So
I know.
back to the original.
But do I buy the new one that just came out yesterday, or do I wait and get the next one with the new chip the new chipset that's coming?
I know what I just
That's
did.
the question.
I was like, why did I shrink down my overlay? Don't wait.
Yeah.
Waiting is problematic. Okay, if you can, right? Let's fix this. If your machine is more than 4 years old, just get a new one. If your machine is newer than that, wait. Right? This is a 2017. It's a fully loaded 2017. And in theory, I could wait. Am I? Absolutely not. Why? Because I plan my business
pack
around.
that up and send it over to Chicago. I mean,
listen, if this, most of us are doing this as a business. This is our business, right? I plan my business around replacing the machine every 2 years. That is part of the business plan. And most people, from corporations all the way down to Mike in his garage, like making shovels, do not do that. Okay?
No, I worked for Clear Channel. They definitely did not do that.
So
trust me.
What you and this becomes a problem, right? Especially if you are in a media creation business. If your 5-year-old machine will completely work. It'll run Final Cut, Premiere, Audition, Logic, all of that stuff. But if your competitor has the same skill set, we're not going to say I'm better than Mike. Okay, you and Mike are twins, right? You guys split.
Right.
But Mike got the 2020 machine. You're still rocking the 2015 machine. Everything else being equal, Mike is outproducing you by 40%.
Yeah.
Okay.
I believe it.
And then so
I don't doubt that.
That's why if you're doing this from a business perspective, the best thing you could do is set yourself in a process where that machine goes away every 2 years. Do not fall in love with it. I give it name. I always give it a name. This is Vader. The old one is Sidious. Like I have my Sith Lords, all my machines. But nice. Vader is going bye-bye. Okay? And then in the end of August, Kylo Ren will show up and he will take his place. And I have no feelings lost for Vader, and he's been great. Like he's been the
See,
master.
I'm guilty.
Anakin, you're the
If you
dog.
look behind me right now, I still have records from the 70s that are original. I have a hard time getting rid of stuff, okay?
Records is a different
I still
story.
have my 1969 baseball cards. I still have my 1960s bobbleheads. So I have a tough time getting rid of stuff. That's all
Okay,
I can say.
I'm going to address Jason real quick because Jason brings up a very good and valid point. He says 75% of the users don't need the power behind the computer they buy. I would say yes for people that are buying like a fully loaded iMac to write real estate contracts or to
Yep.
to do stuff like that. But if you're doing media creation, that means YouTube, gaming, music, Photoshop, Illustrator, any of the above, yeah, you will always use that power because the applications
And I
nowadays,
tax my machines to death. If you saw what's on my machine, you would be really surprised because
yes,
I've
nowadays
got
the
so many
software
drives attached to it.
nowadays software is
Yeah.
able to keep up with what the processors do. In the old days, software wasn't really optimized to use full processors, and it's just a thing. But also, Jason, to bring that back around, I don't know if you've heard this before, but the humans, average people, don't use but 10% of the brain capacity. So maybe that's just a thing. Maybe that just comes with being a human. It's hard to wrap my head around that. But yeah, it's again, if you're just a home user, keeping up with the latest and greatest is throwing money at the wind. And if you got it, cool. And if you don't do it. But from a business perspective, every 2 years, just swap it out. Because the other thing that kind of also helps eliminate, it won't 100% eliminate it, but it mitigates that. You almost never, except for the case where you just get a bad machine, you almost never have to worry about downtime because you haven't put yourself in a position to have a machine that like it's on its fifth year and she's doing perfectly fine, and then one day the power supply just eats it because that's what power supplies are built like now. They're not built like before.
Yeah.
I worked at the Genius Bar. I changed power supplies every day. And the modern machine power supplies, especially in Hawaii, are good for about 3 years because we have poor electricity, lots of humidity, lots of moisture in the air. So it just ruins power supplies. And, it's just one of those things. Like, that's the cost of living out here. You were going to eat power supplies left, right. If you open any computer out here, you look in the power supply, it's rusting. Especially if you live in like Kaneohe or Waikiki or somewhere near the water, it's going to rust. Almost everybody lives near the water here. It's not that many people up in the mountains, so that becomes an issue, right? And again,
Well, that's an issue for people down in Florida with their cars and everything else. Yes,
exactly.
totally. In
If your
Chicago, we don't
neighborhood
have
has
that
rusty
issue as
cars,
bad.
if you have rusty cars in your neighborhood, you're probably going to have it. But you know what people don't do? They don't think about, oh, let me put a dehumidifier in the room that the computer's in so I can control the temperature and I can slow down the rust. Or let me put on a battery backup so I can control the brownouts, so I'm not hammering my power supply all the time. My battery backup down here pops on about 10 times a day because I live in a spot that has horrible power. And that all takes its toll on the machines. So it's another reason why I don't like the home machines very long because I know in about year 4, the power supply is going to go anyway. So again, like if you, in your business perspective, if you plan for this, you don't have a problem. It doesn't come out as, oh my God, another $3,000. You know what I mean? You plan for it.
Yeah.
And so what I like to tell people, and Ryan, who's here, he said, easy Mace Windu. Ryan, who's here, we talk about this all the time. Like people in our business, photographers, videographers, DJs, MCs, like all of the above, you should take 10% of everything you get, immediately put it away. This is the machine fund because that equipment, your wireless mic, your turntable, your needles, all of that shit's going to eat it, and you're going to be like, I got to buy some needles. But if you had planned for that, it's not a problem.
Well, DJs have seen that especially with wireless mics because of the changes in frequencies and things. That's been a big talked about issue for the last couple of years, that everybody's having to get rid of a lot of their microphones depending on what they had. And, if you get the better microphones now, you're buying them in a frequency range. A Sennheiser, you're getting it in, whether you're getting it in the A zone or the B zone, whatever the case may be. that's a part of our expense right now for DJs,
Jason
as
has
well
a
as your.
Jason has a great comment. As you're buying that computer and taking it home, it's outdated. That is so true. That's like when you
It's like
take
driving your car off the parking lot. Okay, yes, that's the deal.
yes. And my brother says, voltage regulator and power conditioners also help. Like it's like drinking filtered water. And bro,
Yeah.
I love your icon. It's pretty awesome. That's my little brother right there. So
Oh, nice.
it's one of these things where this conversation's been going on for decades, right? Even when we had our store, we sold video cameras and high-end broadcast equipment as well as consumer equipment. And we would have these broadcast guys that would come in and be like, "Oh, my camera's broke. I don't know what I'm gonna do." And we're like, "Do you have a backup camera?" And they're like, "No." I'm like, you walk around the island bragging to be the top video guy. You get all of the
And you
high
don't
end
have a
jobs.
backup.
You're shooting for Disney, Discovery Channel, TLC. You're shooting the top stuff. You got one camera. That's your fault. You got one
Yeah.
camera and a Cadillac Escalade outside, laced, like absolutely laced.
So what
But you got one camera.
if you are going to get rid of your computer? What's the best way to get rid of it, and where could you get the most for it? Do you put it on Facebook? Can you trade it in? I see Apple now is taking trade-ins.
Nah,
Is
sell
that
it-
something
sell it
that's
straight
something
out.
new?
The trading game for everybody isn't going to be as good as selling it outright, to homie in the neighborhood through, Craigslist, which absolutely hate, or Facebook Marketplace or something of that nature. Because there are people who just write books. There are people who just write fan fiction. There are people who just need another spot for my kid. My kid wants to, take up making some music. And so, yeah, don't go buy your kid a $3,000 machine. That's crazy. So that's where that market, sort of sits, right? If not, you find a charitable organization like the guy right next door to me. He takes all of my old tech, he cleans it up, and he gives it to like people in transition from homeless to like regular life. He hooks them up with computers. Like I watched a dude give away 350 computers this weekend for back to school
Wow.
for
Nice.
kids in the housing. Right, so
That's awesome.
I'd rather do that than trade it back to Apple and get like, oh, we'll give you $100 for it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So there's an organization like that somewhere in your neighborhood too. It's just because people ain't on the opposite end of that, they don't tend to look for that. But that's the best way, and that works with anything. Oh yeah, Jason also brings up another point. If you do video, and I think Logic might also be able to do this. I can't remember offhand. You can take your older machines and set them up as a render farm. And so what that means is when you're compiling your project, you can let the old machine do the calculation because you don't care when it's finished because it's doing something. And that frees your master machine up to do its own thing. That's something that we've always done, always set extra machines to do rendering and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Ryan, keep it a secret. Keep it a secret. He said he knows exactly who I'm talking about when I say the person with the laced out whip, and then I got one camera complaining that it doesn't work and they need it fixed right away. And people do that about their computers too, right? I know many of DJs with one notebook, and then my Serato's acting up, and I got a gig tonight. You pull out the other notebook and keep going. That's what you keep. That's what you keep the old one for. You keep the old one.
I'm all about the backup.
I'm
all about the backup. You have to be.
I mean, I got friends
It's
that
not
don't even have
when-
their library.
It's
backed
not
up.
if, it's when. Not if, when.
I'll call out Jimmy Taco, who used to not back up his hard drives until I had to yell at him about 3 times. You got to have that data backed up, bro. That's your life, bro. That's all your records that you've taken the time to convert to digital. That's all your cue marks, everything all set in place, and you don't. I mean, these guys, these 1 terabyte little babies right here, they go and sell for $80 on a weekly basis.
Are you running SSDs? Are you still buying SSDs for those? Or see,
this,
I like
this SSD.
I like these. Okay, I like the Lacey's.
Let's see.
It's a 4 terabyte Thunderbolt, and I keep a couple of these for each one of the computers, not just for one computer. I keep them for, I keep like 2 of them for each computer. That way I've got my music no matter what.
Those ruggeds were literally still are the best spinning drives out for portability. And the reason why people buy them is because you can get a 4 terabyte for like $200.
Yep, that's exactly right.
That is still a spinning drive, and even with all
It
the
is.
rubber
It is,
in the
but with
world,
music and Serato, you don't need more than that. I can load those drives up. They sound great. They work great.
Okay,
They're
I
dependable.
want you to do this to that drive. This is why you buy SSDs. I could do this all day.
Well, I don't do that to my drives, Doc. Come on.
Yeah, not on purpose, but it's the club. I have totally seen the drunk girl reach in. Yo, Eddie, can you play TLC? And then knock down the whole
drunk
computer.
girl. You got to keep the drunk girls away from me.
Yeah, so I mean, I prefer the SSD
Security.
for the simple reason
Security.
that
Help, security.
the SSD is not going to have a physical damage problem. And we live in water. Like we can have a tsunami any day. So I could pretty much pull these out of the water and keep using them. Those ain't going to work. So I love those LaCie drives. They're fantastic. And I would never not at the Apple Store, we use them religiously. But if you can get SSDs, get them. And the prices come down so much. See, back in the day, a 4 terabyte SSD would have been like $2,000. But nowadays, a 4 terabyte SSD is $400. And then actually cheaper on some of the brands like PNY. So at that rate, considering we used to pay $400 for a 200 gig drive, get SSD because it's not going to eat it. It's not just the write speed in that. You know what I mean? That write speed is wonderful when you're doing video and rendering audio, but it's just the safety of the data. Oh, here we go. See, my little brother he thinks just like me.
He's on it, huh?
It's not he said the same thing I said. It's not just the write speed because you don't need that power for what we're doing, but the data is a little bit safer here, and also it makes your backup times faster, so you're more likely to back up because your machine doesn't take 8 hours to back up. It'll back up literally the speeds of these drives. I can move 4 terabytes of data across one of these in less than an hour. Yeah.
So my next question for you. Let's talk about one of two things. Let's talk about configuring one of these new iMacs, and then let's talk about what the difference will be with the new chip. I mean, we've covered a little bit of this, but if we go to the new chipset, that's going to be the AMD. Is that correct? That's going to be the one that's coming out of
ARM, and that is confusing because ARM. There's a lineage between AMD and the modern ARM processor, but the ARM processors that are coming out for Apple is Apple.
Okay. So the first computers that we're going to see with that processor will be a new iMac. Is that or MacBook Pro? Is that correct?
Probably a new MacBook or MacBook Pro, not necessarily Pro, but it will probably be a new notebook first, or because this last Intel iMac came out and I think the reason why we didn't get it right now is they're saving it for the body style change, right? The iMac that we see right now, there will be a body style change on the next one, say maybe next August, and they'll put that silicon in there with the new body style change.
So we're going to get major changes coming.
Yeah, the next update will be a major change.
Okay.
I saw your comment, Robert. I'm sending it to you in 1 second. Yeah. So yes, Jason brings up a very valid point, and I can't stress this enough. These particular Macs that are coming out right now are very much placeholders. However, because of the fantastic changes in 10th generation and 9th generation, it's worth still getting, even though it's a placeholder. Okay.
So given the choice of buying the brand new, 2019, is that the latest MacBook Pro that we can get right now, or did they have an update to that?
There was 2020.
There is a 2020.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
the 2019 was supposed to be a phenomenal machine, according to the experts. And that includes Glenn and Ken from Ecamm that think the world of the 2019 MacBook Pro. They highly recommend it. I know we have the improvement to the keyboard, improvement to everything. Seems to be running rock solid for streaming. So, it's a great option. I'd say if you get a hold of a 2019 MacBook Pro right now, that would be the way to go. And then wait for that new machine to come out.
That's what you can buy. Okay, it is technically a 2019 because it came out like 3 days before Christmas. But I call it a 2020 because it's the newest one. But yeah,
okay, that's what I thought was
the actual
newest,
number is
the
2019,
latest and greatest.
but it came out like a week before the year rolled. So all it is a 16-inch MacBook Pro. There's one sitting on the table right over there.
And that's got an i9 processor in it, correct? It's
yes.
an i9?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, no, it's if you want it that way. It starts at i5.
Oh, it does start on the Mac. Well, that would be a 13-inch, though, wouldn't it, for the i5? Or can you get a 16-inch i5?
You can get a 16-inch i5, I think.
All right, so this is interesting because my 2011 MacBook Pro, which is a 17-inch, has an i7.
The 16-inch starts at i7.
Okay. Well, now this new MacBook or iMac that came out yesterday comes in an i5 or an i9 processor. Is that correct?
i5, i7, i9.
I believe. Oh, they do have a 7. Okay. I thought it was going to be i5, i9. So for what we do, what do you recommend that we have? Should we have an i5, an i7, or an i9 processor in our machines?
Unless your credit card / wife is the only thing stopping you from not getting an i5, don't buy an i5. But if that's all you can get it. All right. But if you can only upgrade one thing in that whole situation, make it the processor. Because iMacs, you can change the RAM.
Okay.
Let that soak for me, because iMacs, you can change the RAM.
Yeah, so before you couldn't do that. Well, with the iMac, you could.
iMac, you always could.
It's the MacBook Pro. You cannot change the RAM. You have to buy it configured and keep it that way. Is that correct?
Yes, that has to be soldered on.
Or can you go black market and get it changed out?
No, I wouldn't do that because it's soldered on the board.
Okay.
So this is the other reason why, for a production machine, was staying in your house. Yeah, you're not going to lug an iMac to the club. Let's just get that straight. But for your production machine, what's in the house, what you're probably using for streaming or editing or doing whatever, this is the move right here. You get a iMac, you put 8 gigs of RAM in it, and if you can make only one upgrade the processor. If you can make 2 upgrades, then you upgrade the processor and the graphics card. What you don't want to do, you don't want to put in anything higher than the 512. I know that's going to freak people out. I know it's going to freak people out.
Yeah, it does, because I mean, I don't feel like I don't know why they had MacBooks with 128, hard drives in them as a base, and then it went to 256, and now it's like 512. I don't know about you, but I mean, I load drives up like crazy because of music and software and everything else. I don't feel like it's enough. And I made the mistake. The last iPad that I bought, I have an iPad Pro and I bought it big, but I bought an iPad just to run some lighting. So I was running the DMX lighting with basically nothing on that thing as a base. It's not even enough to run the lighting because the software, there's just no drive space on those things. You can't put anything on them. It's almost like a waste. I don't know why they sell a product that you can't even load up. I mean, there's just not enough with, I think it's got 32 in it. Or I don't know if it's 32 or 64, but it's bad. I mean, it works great, but I can't put anything else on it. I just run the lighting. So I have the ADJA lighting program for it. And that's what I run, the Bridge, which is a great product, by the way, if you're running a couple moving heads and some uplighting. It's a wonderful piece. But that's what I'm using, and it works, but I'd like some more space on that thing. So if you go 512, what would you do? Are you going to – I know you've got a jerry-rig way of doing your machine. You put a solid-state drive on your machine. You told me how you did it after I had already ordered up to get mine as a 2 terabyte. But, share it with our listeners and our viewers and tell them what you do as far as that goes.
Okay, so it's an iMac. All right? So you're not going to open it and change the drive. But you don't have to. These guys are fast, right? Again, it's not going to be as fast as the internal, but these are fast. It's not the same as the external spinning drive you bought from Costco. Those are slow. So that's why they're irritating, okay? But you can buy a PCI 4 modern SSD, 2 terabyte for $150. And then you're going to buy a Thunderbolt 3 or 10 gigabyte Ethernet enclosure for that same drive for another $100. So for $300, I could put a 2 terabyte drive on the back, right? Now, let's
Okay.
switch.
Now, are you putting your operating system on that also, or are you going to leave your operating system on the 512?
No. Just pay attention. See this right here? 2 terabytes, $600. For $600, I can start building you a Synology 6-bay drive that you could get close to 20 terabytes out of, right? At 8 terabytes is $1,800. For $1,800, I can build you a 40 terabyte Synology that, using the 10 gig Ethernet, which is the $100 upgrade, you would transfer 3 times faster than any of these, right? You can pull.
So you would do that $100 upgrade on the Ethernet?
Always, because you're just going to get better throughput in general. Even when it's acting as is normal, even when it's acting as a normal gigabit, it's going to run better on the 10 gig. And all the new networking stuff from here to 4 will be migrating to 10 gigabit. So you don't buy the old one, okay? So,
well, I have a I have a NAS drive. So I have the WD 4100, and it has 4 bays in it. I put in 8 terabyte drives in there. So I put the red drives in there. It's a dog with fleas. It is probably the worst purchase I have ever made. Even though it should have been the best purchase I ever made, it is the worst purchase because
you
the
bought
seek time
drives
on it is so slow that I can literally put in a search for a song, and in a half hour, I may not have the results. So it is totally useless. And yet, if I pull it up on my iPhone, which you can do, I can go to my iPhone and pull up that NAS drive. It will come up much faster off my iPhone than it will off my computer. And it's hooked up through Ethernet. Explain that one to me, please.
You're talking about 5,400 RPM spinning drives. Every single 5,400 RPM spinning drive should be taken to the ocean and drowned. We live in 2020. That's not specs for 2020. Okay?
But I just bought that thing like 2 years ago, honestly.
That's your fault.
Yeah,
2 years in computers is not the car.
I know.
You got to disconnect computers from years, months. That's the word. Okay? But now, a properly configured RAID has been out for decades, but people don't do that. People go and buy what they see at Best Buy or Costco.
Well, that's what this is a RAID. I mean, it is a RAID.
Maybe RAID. You bought a slow RAID.
Yes.
RAIDs need to have, if you're going to have spinning drive RAIDs, you need 7,200 RPM. You also need a RAID that has a processor, not just the 7,200 RPM drives. Okay. So for instance, that Western Digital RAID is, even if you filled it with 7,200 RPM drives, there's that, and there's a RAID card that mitigates the RAID, but it doesn't have a CPU. But the Synology, the QNAP, the Buffalo, the Pegasus, they all have they have a MacBook CPU in there to mitigate the data. Like, they literally have the equivalent of a small MacBook inside the thing. So what that does is it's able to go, hey, go, and it's a traffic director. So when everyone has directions, it moves faster. So all of that seek time and that other stuff you're running into, that's a problem because the RAID that you have doesn't have a CPU. Also, on the bottom of that RAID, there might be a small door. If there's a small door where you can put a little micro M2 SSD, you can buy one of those for $50, and you stick that on there, 128 gigs. And what it will do is it will cache things. And because you're working with audio files, 128 is enough. It will cache the drives. So when you go to search for them, it can pull it quicker, right? And again,
there is a USB. There is a connection for USB on that, if that's what you're referring to, where you could actually like put a drive on there.
No.
Because it was designed to be able to move stuff. I don't know if that's what you're referring to.
That's not it.
So for all the people out there, I am getting a lesson right now, and you are watching it live. Okay, I feel like a complete imbecile here with some of this stuff, and yet I've been pretty successful over the years, and I think I'm pretty tech savvy. So I am getting a lesson here, and I hope you guys are too, because this is a lot of stuff that will affect you.
Okay, here's the problem with tech savvy. Tech savvy is the same thing as golf. I know dudes that are a single-digit handicapper, right? But
like myself.
Right? And that's fantastic, but that's not Tiger Woods. Unfortunately, in order to get to that, it requires a total insane level of dedication to learning this stuff. And Mostly I get it because I configure machines for friends, families, customers, clients. And so I've seen the headaches after the fact. And I'm normally brought in to I'll say it, I'm normally brought in to unf somebody's nephew's recommendation or somebody trying to buy something on the cheap. And
Yeah.
unfortunately,
Well, I wasn't going cheap on this. I mean, it was not a cheap process to put that NAS drive in. And I thought that would be the best backup system for me for keeping all the music, because I have about 8 terabytes of music, you know,
yeah, for
and
backup,
I don't want to lose it.
For backup, that's an incredible system. But backup is not the same thing as work drive.
Yeah. Well, so I found that out the hard way, because I wanted to still be able to at least look up music. If I have something that I need, I thought I could pull it up fairly quickly and it would just pop up. So and that is not the case.
Here's the curse of our industry. Tech jobs are rampant. So the type of nerds like me or like my brother or like Ryan, we all have jobs at places that are no longer retail. The guys in retail are dudes who read a bunch of articles, play a bunch of video games, and don't really understand the bottom layer of the tech, right? So they just recommend what they saw Linus recommend and not necessarily do the homework. And I've watched it happen. It's even at Apple. It's horrible right now. Like the guys that I trained when I was at the Genius, most of those guys are gone. The new geniuses, like some of them dudes, I want to choke them. Like I've gone in and explained to them exactly what's happened, and they say, "Well, have you tried installing all the latest updates?" I'm like, dude, did you listen to me?
That's
the first statement
level
out of my
one support.
The first statement out of my mouth is I did Apple tech support for 10 years in this exact Genius bar in the exact same spot you're standing. Of course I did that, dummy. I know better. But they're not trained to listen. They're trained to follow a chart. So they don't necessarily hear that stuff. And so the other problem with Best Buy kind of stopped it, so they're not that bad. Some retail stores still have spiff programs. And so a spiff program says, if I recommend a Toshiba this week, I get $100. If I recommend the Lenovo next week, I get $100. If I recommend the Mac the week after that, I get $100. So they're going to recommend you what's on spiff and not necessarily what's correct.
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely right on that.
Robert said he learned more from you guys than Google. And Junebug says, I boot off for 250 gig, around $40. Yes. And then depending on what I'm doing, that's doable. Basically run the applications off the drive. Yes, so that's the way I treat the iMac. What goes on the internal drive is programs only, nothing else.
Yeah.
Like the reason why, to go backwards to what Scott was talking about, the reason why they sell a 32 gig iMac is because the primary purchasers of iMacs iPads do the majority.
This is iPad, yeah.
Everything in the cloud. Right? The majority of the purchases of MacBook Airs and small MacBooks and even entry-level MacBook Pros do everything in the cloud. They don't need the drive space anymore. Us content creator people are the only ones that need drive space nowadays, right? Everything else is
in my situation, the program, so the software, which is the AD, I don't have it in front of me. I should have pulled that in here.
Creation.
But
lighting is content
you needed
creation.
Space to store the program, which I didn't realize on this.
Lighting is content creation, okay? That's is what it is, right? It's production. Let's just switch. I use content creation because it's the more modern word, but the absolute word is production.
I love it too.
If you're in production, you will always need space. So nobody in any production, anything, should ever buy a 32 gig anything, period. Because you will create files that are huge. You just can't help it. It's part of the deal, right?
Yeah.
I hear horror music popping. That's awesome.
That's for you, okay?
That's
me. That's my brain after you've told me this.
I did put the link in for the PCI SSD. I put in the Saberent. This is my recommendation on these SSDs right here. This is a Saberent 1 terabyte NVMe 4 PCI 4 M2 internal SSD. I want you to check the write speed on this bad boy. Did they put it? Let me find you. This is going to crack you up. The write speed on this drive is something like 5,000 megabytes per second. Wow. The internal drive on that iMac bought from the Apple Store on last year's iMac was 1,300. The new iMac that just came out yesterday, their internal write speed is going to be about 3,000, 2,800. This external write speed is 5,000. Okay, and the 2 terabyte version of this bad boy is 429, right? On the Apple page where we was here, the 2 terabyte they put 600.
It's like $600 upgrade, yeah.
For a slower
upgrade,
drive.
not even.
For a slower drive. You feel me?
How much is do they have a 4 terabyte on there? Go back to that other, if you don't mind going back to the other screen. Do they have a 4 terabyte?
It's sold out.
Because I need like 4 terabytes for just carting around music to shows.
It's $800.
$800.
$750.
And you need 2 of them. See, you see where I'm going with this, Doc?
Slow down, pimp. Look, 4 terabytes over here, 1,200 bones upgrade. Let's go back to stock. 1,200 bones. So this is why you don't buy internal from here. You buy it external, and you put it in a Thunderbolt 3 enclosure. Do not buy these USB 3 enclosures. USB 3 is fast. USB 3 is fast as you think you are until you roll up against, say,
even me with my spinning drives, I do have the Thunderbolt connectors on them, okay? So there they are. Thunderbolt. Just so you guys know.
Yeah, so
Thunderbolt, they are nice.
Well, because I think people misconstrue that this connector looks like USB-C. USB-C transfers at 1/4 the speed of Thunderbolt 3, and we're about to jump to Thunderbolt 4. So I know in the PC realm, Thunderbolt's not very prevalent unless you have like Gigabyte or MSI boards, some of the higher end boards. But in the Mac space, all of those ports that look like USB-C ports on your computer, they're all Thunderbolt ports. And then when you buy a dock, not me, but the thing that you plug your stuff into, you buy a Thunderbolt dock. You don't buy a USB-C dock because it's going to allow you.
Which is it? Which one is a good one to buy? Are you buying something like the Elgato that's like a few $100s that has all kinds of stuff on it, or are you buying?
They're all a few $100s because of licensing. You know what I'm saying? It's not just the hardware you're paying for.
Yeah.
Thunderbolt licensing between Intel and Apple costs, money, and it's mostly Intel. So
there's a huge price to, like, if you're looking at an audio interface and you want to get something that's Thunderbolt versus USB, there's a big price difference. It's huge.
An audio interface is not really necessary, but yeah, I get it. Okay, so this is a Thunderbolt 3 Pro dock, and it has everything. This is what I currently have. If I was going to replace it today, I would buy the Pro, which is this. Dang it, that's not what I tried to press. Sorry. I would buy.
We need to put some links up for this stuff in the description so that everybody can see this stuff.
It'll be
when the video goes to YouTube.
Okay, so this is the Pro dock, and it's going to give you your 2 Thunderbolt 3 ports, and you're going to get backwards compatible, so that it will work with your USB-C stuff and all of the above, but it's just cleaner. And the key elements here is that display port out. So when you use a proper display port versus HDMI to run your external monitor, it taxes your computer less. You got high-speed SSDs. You got an eSATA port over there, which is going to allow you to connect your external hard drives faster through eSATA, which is, again, people don't talk about. But if you're going to buy a RAID, you want it to be connected either through the Thunderbolt or the eSATA, not the USB 3. It's USB 3 just can't push data like that, or data. I don't care which one you call it. So yeah, like
potato.
There is definitely some there's some thinking this stuff all the way through and building it correctly. And then so we got to get off the idea of leaving everything on your master internal drive. That's just not the way anymore. Yes, it works, but even that's hogging up your machine.
For a long time, that's always been the better way. If you could run external and keep your programs internal, that was a better way of doing it. It just became a convenience factor with music. Now that you've got the SSDs, they're pretty quick. Serato doesn't eat a ton of speed out of your machines or your hard drives, where you can run music off of it. And it's the convenience factor of having something on the computer if you need it versus the drive. Where's my drive? Where's my cable? Or, all of a sudden you got an issue, you didn't have a backup, whatever. So it was just a nice way of having an additional backup. That's really what it comes down to.
Well, the other thing that a lot of people misconstrue, and like this is something that we used to talk about all the time when like Final Cut first came out. Um, we would tell people run two externals, right? So you can have one scratch disk that's handling the video and one scratch disk is handling audio. So that way it was quicker because they weren't both trying to write to the same disk. They were writing like this. And so it was faster, and software has been much better optimized for that nowadays. And because we're dealing with SSD, when you're dealing with PCI writing to the disk has more lanes. So that's why the same drive SSD, you can buy a PCI 3 SSD or a PCI 4 SSD, and the 4 is faster because the 4 is writing down more lanes. Again, think of it as traffic sending the data versus this traffic sending the data. So it's a 2-lane road versus a 16-lane road. And it's different. I want to touch on Jason's comment real quick. Jason said, with the Apple stuff, you're paying for the Apple logo. Yes and no. These internal drives, yes, they're more expensive, but there is a reason for it. Besides, they're not completely just robbing you. Part of it has to do is this is hard to explain. When we used to drive remote control cars, or if you fly remote control planes or whatever, things like that, you buy what's known as matched pairs. Even in memory, actually for PC RAM, you could buy what was a matched pair. There was extra quality control and testing done to make sure that these chips are identical twins. Where the stuff that you just go randomly buy, they're close enough, like they're fraternal twins. They work, they do the same thing, but the first pair has been tested that their speeds are so close that you'll never run into a problem. And so they have higher performance. And they will do that with batteries. So even for racing, you could buy a pair of matched pair tires where they have been weighed to be the exact same thing. Matched pair tires cost more, but requires more quality control effort so that you can get, things that are lined up. So the internal drives, they go through a higher level of scrutiny at the factory. So the manufacturer that made the Sabarin drive is quite possibly the same manufacturer that's making this drive, right? So the Apple ones primarily are Samsung. So they'll call Samsung and go, I want you to comb the batch of chips, and we want the highest tested, highest batch chips you got for our internal SSDs. And Samsung will go, absolutely, we got you. It's going to cost you 30% more. And Apple goes, we don't care because our users are used to paying that. Right? And so they'll do it. So it's not just Apple buy the same shit from the swap meet. Sorry. They don't buy the same stuff from the swap meet.
Well, that's the PC way of doing
and
things.
then slap a label on it and then be like, okay, buy this because it has this label. They really, I swear to you, I'm an ex-Apple employee, they really don't do that. But it is, there's different overhead. There's also, they write in the support costs as well, because their support isn't on the phone calling New Delhi. Their support requires going down to the south side Chicago, walk in the store, and go see Mike in person. So Mike gets paid $60,000 a year to talk to you in person. So you're also paying for your support up front too, because you can normally choke an actual person versus, have you restarted your computer today, sir? So that's the other reason why there is somewhat of.
Oh, please! I've been on the phone with AT&T too much the last few weeks. I know about that very much. So I get you.
Yeah, Keep It Techie brings up, like, before we wrap this, I'll bring this to, he brings up a value point. The longevity of SSD is out there, right? Like SSD, there's been a lot of talk about SSD and their life and their write failures. And in theory, in laboratory theory, a spinning hard drive theoretically can hold the data longer, right? But I gotta say, I have SSDs that are 10 years old that still work. I have spinning drives that are 10 years old that still work. If I really gotta keep it, like keep it, it's on my RAID in the back. I have a 20 terabyte RAID, and swap those drives every 2 years or so. Just pull and replace the drives, take the old drives and repurpose them.
Or are you pulling them before they tell you
Oh
to
yeah,
pull them,
oh
or
yeah,
you just
yeah.
pulling them to pull them? Because
Yes, sir.
I leave mine in there. I haven't had any, any error messages or anything. It seems to work just fine
It does work just fine, 100%.
until it doesn't
Until
work
it
just
doesn't.
fine.
So I preemptively don't, because I've done this. I've watched the dude cry
Yeah, I
because
know.
he went to Italy on his 25-year anniversary. He took all these pictures. It was the greatest thing. He got home. He copied them to the hard drive. He deleted the SSD card. I mean, sorry, the SD card. And then the Western Digital external drive failed. And he's staring at me, and the wife is looking at him like, I'm about to F you up. Those are the best pictures we've ever taken, and I'm about to divorce you over this. So why wait for
That's
the drive
when it
to
costs
fail?
$1,000 a drive to get it fixed. Okay.
Right? You replace the drives before they fail, folks. Don't wait. If you have a backup drive that's 2-3 years old, stop pressing your luck, son. Stop pressing your luck. That's not much different than playing the
That's
pull-out
good
game.
advice for any DJ out there with your music, guys. And trust me, I've been down that road before where you lose a drive, and it is not pretty. It is not fun. And you will kick yourself, and you will kick yourself, and you will kick yourself. And I know you don't want to spend that $200, but you better spend that $200 ahead of time. It's a lot cheaper than the $1,000 or $1,500 down the road.
My brother said, I heard SSDs need to be powered every so often to keep that memory. Not sure. You know what? That sounds logical. I can't confirm or deny that, but that sounds logical. And I hate to break it to you folks. My little brother is 20 times smarter than me, but I got more game.
That's scary. That's scary.
Okay. Last thing.
Because I love how animated you get when we start talking technology, Doc. I mean, you just let it all out. I love it.
Hey, June's animation is, I think, the SSD.
That little geekism comes out in you big time. I can see it right here from Chicago.
One last thing on hard drives before we bounce. Because I do think if you guys got nothing out of today, it's going to be about backing up your stuff, especially all the DJs with their tracks and stuff. And I actually appreciate the fact that Serato and Rekordbox and Algorithm and all these guys are wanting us to use cloud-oriented libraries, because you have a much harder chance of losing all your data in the cloud-oriented library. So I appreciate that. I think maybe one of the best things you could probably do if you don't want to invest in a QNAS or a Synology, it's really inexpensive to take an old PC and build what's known as an unraid server or a FreeNAS server. And that's where you can take a bunch of non-matching, those big 3.5 inch, heavy drives. You can slap them in an old PC, connect them up through all the SATA cables, run this software, and it will allow you to build a RAID where the drives are hot swappable, exchangeable, expandable, and all of the above. FreeNAS costs nothing. You just need an old PC housing and about maybe 2 hours worth of YouTube watching. Unraid is $129 for the best package. And again, my Unraid in the back has 8 drives in it right now, and it's about 20 terabytes, and I'm about to add 5 more on Saturday to bump it up and replace some of the tech in there. And what makes it fast is that has a 10 gigabit network card in there. This iMac has a 10 gigabit adapter on the back, so I can literally transfer 5, 6, 7 terabytes of data in less than 5 minutes off of that connection. Like, it just flies. And what's good about those is any one drive can fail. You just replace that drive, and they don't have to be matching drives. The RAID that you have to replace it with the exact same drive or it doesn't work. So that's a good option. And maybe if you guys have opportunity, go look up Unraid or FreeNAS and build yourself a pretty dope NAS in order to keep your stuff together, or just give up and buy yourself a Synology or a QNAS. Even if it's only a 2-bay, it's a really, really good way to keep your stuff in there. Also, with these guys, Keep It Techie brought up, if you have Unraid, I believe FreeNAS too, you can also spin up a Nextcloud instance, which allows you to have your own Dropbox, right? So you store all of your music and stuff in there. And if you were on the road and you were at a gig somewhere, if there's an internet connection, and somebody asked, "Oh, could you pull out this weird obscure song?" and you know you have it back at the crib, you'd actually be able to pull it to your Serato because you could just get it yourself. You know what I mean? So
Can you pull it to your Serato, or are you just pulling it into your? I mean, I do that with an iPhone now.
Yeah,
with
so
my NAS, I'm able to do that.
yeah, same thing.
But I can't pull it into Serato because it would have to download and it would have to be loaded into Serato.
Yeah, so it's basically the same kind of concept. Does the DJ softwares haven't figured out let people connect to their own cloud servers instead of just using what they force you to use? Maybe somebody will come up with a plugin or a workaround for that. But even if you had to drag it to your desktop first and then drop it in, it's only a couple of seconds, you know? So it's not really that big a deal. But it's very important, though, to get your music library, that's your life, son. That's your equivalent of a race car, right?
All right. Well,
if you're
now that
Mario
we're
Andretti,
talking about, we're talking a little bit about the streaming side of things here. I'd like to do a show at some point. You know, we have some major changes coming. For any of you guys that have used Algorithm DJ and you've used Spotify, supposedly Spotify is supposed to be obsolete now and not work with any other third-party applications or software. But right now it still works. We're a month beyond. It was supposed to stop in July. We're in August. It still works. Yet Algorithm has recommended Tidal. Now, I could tell you they had a 90-day, if you were an Algorithm customer like myself, and I loved the software DJ with an iPad and
that's what I use.
And Spotify. I just thought that was the greatest thing ever.
Absolutely.
And they've taken it away from us. Like they do everything with the DJ. They take everything away from us. They take our instrument, the turntable away. They take Spotify away from it. They take all the good stuff away from us.
But they didn't.
So they're giving us Tidal, and Tidal, like I couldn't get my song libraries, you know, my playlist to come over using the software. Didn't work for me. Now I came to find out that even though you have the 90-day trial from Tidal, you have to have a pro version of DJ in order to make it work. So there's a lot of stuff. I'd actually like to do a show on this, Doc. I'd like to do a little demo and show the guys, you know, like the Spotify DJ versus Tidal DJ. And now I'm understanding that we can get Beatport, which has like all 9 million songs or whatever available. But again, it's all like dance and house music. That's usually not what I run into a situation with a corporate or a wedding client that's looking for one of those songs. I usually run into the weird stuff that I would never, ever play or never want to play. That's what they're asking for. And I found Spotify to be great. Tidal had only about half of what I normally play in my library. If I'm matching playlist to playlist, it's probably 35 to 40% less than what Spotify had. So I'd love to do a show on that at some point. Now, next week, Tim Schomer is joining us. So those of you know him from B9.